Well, hello, good afternoon to you. I assume that this is going to find you feeling good about yourself today. If you're in the Tottenham verse, if you are keeping up with the transfer window, then in my opinion, I think we had a good signing in Conor Gallagher. But if we're keeping score, this is where the base, in terms of the internet section of the base, those who are frequent participant, subscribers, YouTubers, um, I'm looking for the proper word here. This is where you start to see and hear the divide of the opinion. First and foremost is that we needed signing. There is no question in my mind that the squad needed upgrading. And just looking at that from when the window was closed, forget the injuries. We needed help in positions that we should be looking to correct or get better in this window. And don't forget, before I stray too far from the main topic, and the main topic here, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining. Today, I'm just going to take a quick look at whether or not Gallagher is actually dividing the base. I know that the Chelsea factor plays into the narrative. But do we want to continue to go down that route? Do we think footballers, in some degree, think that way? Do we think that footballers are not about going to a club that they will feel comfortable, even if sometimes going to the rival? And so that is one conversation to have. Those who want to have that conversation, it's okay, it's fine to have that conversation. It's an open tent, and all are welcome to their opinion. One of the things that I personally try not to do, and I'll say this time and time again, even before I start to do YouTube, I participate on other um, in other groups. But the thing that sticks with me, it is only my opinion, and I see the club from where I'm sitting. And I don't want to ever feel like being the arbiter of how anyone wants to feel about the club. And I continue to say this. And so you can get a little bit of, not politics here, a little bit indoctrinated by some of the stuff that you see on YouTube, and what you're made to believe. I often have this conversation or include this in a conversation. I don't think as fans we watch enough football. Actually watch enough football. I remember saying to a YouTuber once that I don't understand what you're talking about. Because if you're going to be having this kind of discussion, how how don't you not watch La Liga? How you do not watch the French league and Bundesliga? How do you know that the players that you want to see are better or worse than what we have? How do you coincide your conversation when you're talking about Spurs. If you're just analyzing Spurs and all you want to see is a win, and then whatever it is, a loss or whatever it is that you're analyzing, how come you don't go and watch Burnley play? I mean, don't go, but if the game is on, why wouldn't you watch Burnley play? Why wouldn't you watch Wolves play? Because what you're actually looking for, you're looking for players, not the club. Because you can take the worst from, or the best from the worst team, and bring that into your team. So if your team is not functioning, as in Spurs not functioning, and you need a player, how do you now know about that player if Spurs do not play that team as yet? How do you know about the landscape of football if all you do is watch Spurs games? And I'm convinced, say it all the time, I'm convinced that there are tons of Spurs fans who just turn the telly on to watch Spurs play. And the reason why I'm sort of prefacing my conversation leading into the headline, does Gallagher divides the base? Is Gallagher dividing the base? And why we would say that in terms of looking at the squad that we have, if we go through, all or most should agree that this squad is deplete of actual talent, ball players. I am not one to get on and talk about what Tell lacks, what Saar and Bergval, and we talk about that today, and tomorrow I'm back with the same thing. He does well today, but I don't rate him. He can't do anything for me. Doesn't matter what he does in this particular game. We have YouTubers who are like that. Oh, Johnson does nothing except score goals. I'll take him because the objective is to get the ball in the back of the net. How do we get to that? You have to have in this game the compensation of one helping the other, one to the other. So if you have a player like Kudus, for argument's sake, who has a world of skill, and all he does is display that in a or on a cul-de-sac, wherein he's not getting out of that, and he's not crossing the ball, and you're saying, well, Richarlison does not do this and he does not do that, but what Richarlison does is that he's a darn good header of the ball. And so if he's not getting the service, or if you decided that you want to play it to feet and ask him to hold it up, that's not the strength of his game. And to make my point further, I'm not saying that Velez was going to amount to anything. I'm not saying that Velez was a generational talent. I'm not saying that Velez was going to make it in the Premier League. But we have a young kid who is 17, 18, 19 years old that came to the Premier League, and we have inverted wingers who are not crossing the ball. When you scout Velez, he's a tremendous header of the ball. And so we have wingers, Kulishevsky, back then, playing on the wrong side. We don't have a left winger. Well, Son at the time was playing on the inside. And so Velez doesn't have anywhere to develop at this level because everyone are all inverted. All the players are inverted. No one can cross the ball off the correct foot. Johnny Barnes, my fellow countryman, said that a while back. He doesn't think for his mindset and with everything that happens to him over his career that he would survive or could survive in this iteration of football, because once that left foot that he has became his only asset. His speed was gone because of the injuries. He was carrying more weight, and shifting into the midfield is what actually helped his career further it. But if they had asked him, who was a left winger, and we know Johnny Barnes could fly, to go and play on the right, he said he wasn't sure if he would be able to do it for the length of time beyond, what he did going into the midfield. And so when you look at football in itself, it's different. We're talking about XGs and OGs and all the stats and how many through balls and how many carries and how many take-ons. That's what it comes down to, and we're signing players based on those stats. We're not signing players based on what the eyes are telling you. Because for me, which is going to be controversial in this statement, if I were to put Kudus and Jared Bowen together, and you ask me which one would I take, I would take Jared Bowen. Why? And I like Kudus. I saw Kudus played prior to him coming to West Ham, and I was like, wow, we need to go out and get Kudus. But when you look at the development of Kudus and his skill level, very high, but there's a lack of intelligence in how he plays. And so for me, I don't know how I got over there, but somehow I find my way over there to make a point that my question is, are we as YouTubers influencing the base with our opinion, driven every day, which sometimes sound like propaganda? This is not politics. This is football. And so you find what happened is that if in a case like this, there are a section of the fans who will be out there, the regular Joe Smo, and he said, look, I don't like Gallagher because of nothing other than that he's a Chelsea player. Fair enough. But you have another set of fans who are going to look at a Conor Gallagher in relation to what we have. I promise I was not going to talk about Bergvall and Sarr and Tell and Gray in making the point, because then I would defeat what I'm saying that I hear every day when I'm on other channels, is that to make a point of whether or not Gallagher is good enough is to look at Gallagher based on what Gallagher does. Look at Gallagher when he was at Crystal Palace. Was it Crystal Palace or West Ham? I think it was Crystal Palace. Out there on his loan, went back to Chelsea. Pochettino, whom we revered so much and want him back based on the conversation that's there, made him the captain. Pochettino said, if I could have 11 more of these, that's Pochettino, one who is highly rated by the Spursverse. In our orbit, Pochettino is our magic man. And his take on Conor Gallagher is that this is the kind of guy you want in your team. And there are fans, there are YouTubers, and in the bottom, my secondary question was whether or not there is a divide amongst the base because we might not like a player because of where he's coming from. And you're asking yourself, well, we're supposed to be signing footballers to make the team better. And then when you paint the picture of, say, you look at, again, not wanting to use the names, Gray, Bergval, Sar. Who would you rather have at any one of those positions, at the 6, the 8, or the 10, if you were to choose amongst those three versus a Conor Gallagher? Who is a better footballer? Who has more experience? Who was a captain, a leader, versus three projects that may or may not develop and becomes anything later? So we have our opinion, and what we do is that we drive it home every day. We come in and we say, well, Tell has a good game, but I don't rate him. Rather than saying, well, he had a good game, let's see what he does tomorrow. He has a good game, but this part needs to improve. Well, he has a good game, did well, we win or won, but I just don't rate him. Once you are predisposed to that opinion of the player, it can never do any good for you. Just the same with taking a position that this player is going to become somebody. Javis Simmons, for example, we can look at Javis Simmons and know and see, get to know that that's a footballer you're looking at right there. He just needs time and other pieces around him. We know that. We know that the Premier League is a beast. And so if we're going out there and we're signing player, look at it this way. We needed a left back, and we went and signed Souza from Brazil. I don't think we were pulling up any trees in getting that done. He might have the talent, but for now, in the immediate, he will help to move Spence to the right, give Porro a breather. But no one knows anything about him, but we don't have to. And the reason why we don't have to, if we have good scouts, if we want to talk about having a model that is similar to Brighton, similar to Brentford or Bournemouth or Fulham, because now we are being reduced to be compared to Aston Villa and the likes, Forest, because of our position right now and what we're going through as a club. That's what we're reduced to. And we're bigger than all those clubs, including Newcastle. But what we're doing on the pitch does not suggest that. What's happening in our back room does not suggest that we are a bigger club. And for the record, just so you know, outside of all those clubs in recent years, only Palace, Leicester, Newcastle, and let me stretch my imagination some, have actually won anything. Look down the years. Spurs, prior to winning the Europa, for the past 10 to 15 years, who have won the major trophies? Leicester won, even as big as Liverpool is. Liverpool have won 2, say, in the last 20 years. Premier League. City dominated. Chelsea dominated. Arsenal to a lesser degree. So now we're talking about an average 15 other clubs who have not tasted victory. Even with the Carabao Cup, those same teams were winning doubles. And so what Spurs are reduced to is to be compared to teams who are playing well, doing well, but have not won anything. Even though we have a 17-year drought before we won something, the teams that are doing well now because they are is what we're being compared to. Is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. So I don't want to reduce us to let's go be like Bournemouth. Let's go get Areola because Areola is doing well. I'm not saying Frank is the answer, but what I'm also saying is that Glasner and Areola are no different. Their expectations are different. And Glasner is a very good manager, but Glasner has time without pressure being applied to that time. He has time to be slow, methodical, and get there. Same with Aston Villa. They scout well, they buy well, they play well. But what's happened with those teams is that if you do that, in the case of Aston Villa, and you don't win something, it's going to catch up to you. If you start having those players, kind of players that you have, and they're giving you the best football, and all you can do, remember Spurs went through that. Even though I will say that Spurs did not increase the quality, higher quality, when we were a perennial top 4 team. Aston Villa might find themselves in that position where they have this core set of players for 4 or 5 years and play darn good football, has a good back room. And if they don't win something, if you're as good as Aston Villa, right? Which is sometimes we have to look at when we're talking about Spurs and comparing them to other teams. If you're saying Aston Villa is a better team, if you're saying Newcastle is better, then Newcastle won something. So you can make a side-by-side comparison and argument there. That Newcastle has proven that putting a team together and they actually won something. If you even want to go as far as saying Crystal Palace won something when they were not expected. Because remember, Crystal Palace started, I think they lost the first 8 games or whatever it was. It wasn't until they played Spurs that they actually won. But that's water under the bridge. But for comparison, if we're going to start putting Spurs and Brentford and Brighton and Fulham in the same category, what are we doing? We're in a rut. But that it's easier, in other words, to say they are a better team right now based on where they finish. But to say that Spurs should now model what they are doing because they are doing well, but doing well is not equating to them moving up the chart. They are not on the higher level of the food chain. They scout well, play well, do well, but if you're doing all of that, and I'm talking about the Brightons and the Newcastles, well, Newcastle not so much, but the Fulhams and the Brentford and the Brightons. Sunderland just came up, and yes, they're the hot thing. We should be like Sutherland, so we get that. The year before, we were supposed to be like Ipswich. And so we're denigrating our club because it feels good. And so it's the same thing with the signing of Conor Gallagher, who is supposed to be the best or better than everything that we have, who are trying to play in that position. And we go out and we sign Conor Gallagher, and he's splitting the base because YouTubers tell you that Conor Gallagher have no business playing for Spurs. And we take that conversation every day and we regurgitate that conversation, not looking at the value of what Conor Gallagher is. And what I'm saying is that if you're going to tell me that I should now start to look at Brighton as my model. And I tell you that Brighton sold players totaling 200, almost $300 million. And their highest player that they just brought in recently was $46 million. And when Spurs are going after players that are in that category, we are saying that Spurs